Rahab. This is the first of 3 stories that surround this event of crossing the Jordan River and conquering Jericho. Talk a little bit about Jericho. Jericho is about 5 miles away from the Jordan River. It's an oasis that's at the bottom of a valley, which they call a wadi. And this particular one's called the Wadi Kilt. I only mention that because I had the opportunity to actually hike down that wadi. It's fascinating. It's also the same valley where the Jericho Road goes up to Jerusalem. Now, it's about 5 miles from Jordan, but it's about 6 miles from the Dead Sea. Now, they're at the bottom of this huge rift that goes through the land, the lowest spot in the earth. And they're next to this valley that goes right up the mountain. Now, as you go up that valley, up at the top is Jerusalem. It's only 15 miles away, but you have to climb 4,000 feet to get to it. So as you go up the mountain, Jerusalem is a little bit to the south. But as you go up that different valley, a little bit to the north, you have Bethel and Ai. All of those are located at the top of this ridge. It's a fascinating place. When I refer to it as the lowest spot on earth, it is considered the lowest city on earth at 825 feet below sea level. And as I mentioned, the oldest city in continuous use. When I take people to this particular ruins, called a tell, they're always amazed at how small it is. And that's true, it was. We think of this huge metropolitan city of our day and age, but no. The whole thing was a kind of an oblong city that covered about 10 acres. To bring that into perspective, to march around it was only about a half a mile. And inside that city lived about, maybe 2,000 people, maybe 3. Now, in the time of siege, in the time of war, like they were about to go through, the surrounding families would all go inside, so it could easily swell up to 3,000, maybe even up to 4,000 people, but not likely. Very, very small. It was a city-state. In other words, it was not a part of the Canaanite nation. Now, each of the cities in Canaan were individual kingdoms, what we call a city-state. They had their own king, they had their own army. Now, later on, when Joshua has his southern campaign and his northern campaign, the cities all realize they need to get together because you're talking about a nation of 2 million people with 600,000 warriors. So they realized, no, these city-states could not stand alone. So they would join together to fight Joshua. But that left Jericho. This was before all that happened. Jericho was by itself and it had to face. They did send some help, but not much. It talks about the city gates. In all these cities, it's always important to have a strong gate. We normally think of a gate as these 2 big doors that shut. No, that's not how it was. A gate back in that days was actually a large area that had chambers on both sides of it, and a door at one end and huge doors on the other side. When it's all open during the day, they could control who comes in and goes out, but also these chambers were used for city business and to settle legal matters. This is why it's referred to as they went to the gate. That's because that was a public place for business. Now, when we talk about the house, it said that Rahab's house was on the city wall. You got to understand the walls. Jericho is built on a rock, And so the first thing is this rock comes up, and then they put the wall on top of that rock. So the outer wall goes up already a ways up in the air. Then you have about a space of 15 feet in, and then the inner wall goes on up from there. That made this city very hard to conquer because of this double wall system. It made it hard to conquer if you were attacking it like most armies did. But the way God did it, it actually made it easier. But I'll get into that later. The space that's between these walls, the outer wall and the inner wall, is about 12 to 15 feet. People would go in there and build houses because you had two walls already established. You just need to build two more and put a roof on. That's what Rahab did. She had an inn. And it was on the city wall. And that's why the window was just right there facing out. It said that she was a prostitute, a harlot. That was not her main business. She was an innkeeper. A female innkeeper provided housing, provided food, and provided, well, shall we say, comfort. And that was just a part of her total job. And so she was called a prostitute. It was not something that the pagan society of that day looked down on. It was just her profession. She was a respected member of society. In fact, she was at the city gate because as well as other innkeepers were there looking for any visitors to the city to offer them their place. That's why these men went to her house. It was not for the comfort. It was for the housing. And good thing they went there because Rahab knew about their God. It says that she acknowledged that God was the God of heaven and the God of earth, and a mighty powerful God. Don't assume here that she's a great woman of faith at this point. She's not saying that he's the only God. Probably at this point she still believed that there were many gods, and she was probably not giving up her God for this. It's just that she wanted help from this mighty God. It was only after the destruction of Jericho, when she was taken into the camp and put on, there was a time of purification and then a time of bringing them into the camp, teaching them the laws of God, that she accepted this Jehovah, this God of Israel, and made it her own, and married into one of the families, actually one of the families of Judah, and became the great woman of faith that we know she is today. Well, come back when we continue on with the rest of this story, when we give you more insights on the story.